Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I was still on mute there.
That's okay. I think we can handle it. At this point, this was probably the best opener we've done in weeks, and we're on Ropecast number 10. Can you believe it?
Yeah, number 10. There you go.
I know, but we've done pretty
Jenni trailblazing again.
well. We've made it all the way to 10, so I think that's like massively exciting.
Yeah.
So, what's up with you today?
Last day of school.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah. So my youngest, he's in public school. He does not want to go today. He just wants to go ahead and head out early, but too bad he's got to go.
Oh, really?
Say bye to all his friends.
Yeah. Now, is he going back next year?
Probably not to public school.
Yeah, it's been
I
a
think we're at the
long
point now.
It's been a hard couple of years for you.
Yeah. Yeah, especially with all the attack ads and attacking from my campaign run.
Yeah. Yes. So do you feel like that followed the kids to school?
Oh, there's every now and then. I think you know what's so funny is I wouldn't say it followed the kids, but when I say something now, the administrators, site administrators, or whoever it is, they're very attentive and they're very accommodating, believe it or not. And it's also funny because any type of meeting that we have in with our district, I got to make this the right size here. Anytime we have any kind of meeting, whether I have an issue with the school and I need to go talk to the principal or the teacher, whatever, now there's multiple people in the meeting with us.
Interesting.
Instead of just myself and the principal or myself and the teacher, now there's a counselor, someone else. It's always just like, it's not like it's gang up on Michael, but it's kind of like, we better make sure that,
all our bases are covered.
This thing or something.
Yeah. Well, but they should be doing that for every parent.
Yeah.
I mean, they should. I mean, and one of the things that I wanted to talk about this morning that will kind of go into the Satan clubs, and then hopefully we can, finish up with open records requests. But I've had several discussions lately over this whole tax credit education legislation that they're pushing in the Oklahoma legislature this year. And there's some, we don't have a lot of them because in case you don't know, the Democrats figured out some time ago that there was a shift in thought in this state, and that if you wanted to get elected, you needed to become a Republican. I think Joy Hoffmeister was the only salmon to swim upstream there and say, no, I'm just going to become a Democrat. But for the most part, I mean, that's what ends up happening is we have legislators who were Democrats, at least somewhere down the line, and they change to a Republican. And that doesn't, just because you have an R after your name instead of a D, suddenly doesn't make you understand Republican principles. It just gives you an R by your name, which is somehow makes it easier for you to get elected. So I think it's a frustration for me because we've known, some of the people in the legislature some time, and there are some really good senators and there's some really good members in the House. And we considered them friends, and we believe that overall they have the idea of liberty before tyranny and that kind of thing. But it's shocking to me how when you get these people in a legislature, and don't forget we call it a legislative body, right? When they get into that body, it becomes very hard to not adopt the body's stance and to keep your own stance. And I've been having a friendly argument. I hope it's a friendly argument. At least it is on my part. A friendly argument with a representative. I'm not going to say her name because, I do consider her a friend, and I'm not trying to hammer her. But I think it's important that people understand this. And actually, I think it's important that legislators understand this distinction. So she voted for the education package, which included the tax credits, including, tax credit, small one for homeschoolers. And, Jana Belcher, who's with the Oklahoma Constitutional Educators group, and I have been going back and forth on our page with her, with this representative about, we don't want homeschoolers to get a tax credit. And, I don't know why, but somehow I think it's fairly obvious why we don't want them to get a tax credit, because the more government helps you, the less autonomy you have. So, we've been trying to make that stop. Well, she voted for the whole package of, the tax credits and the giving money, to more money to schools. And by the way, again, I'll say it again, I have an objection to giving more money to schools because, Michael, I want to ask you a question. Because you're an entrepreneur. I mean, you're the person we should be going. Actually, I noticed that today is Endangered Species Day, and I'm going to call you an endangered species. Number one.
Well, I would agree with that.
Number one, you're a man.
Yeah, I am a man. There's no doubt about that.
Sorry about that. I just had to slip that in. And then number two, you're an entrepreneur. You don't sit back and wait for the government to give you a tax credit or, tell you where you're going to work best. I mean, you go out and make your own way. And I want to know, so as an entrepreneur, do you get paid if you do a crappy job?
No, you do not. And that's how the free market works. That's how price discovery and in the markets that I work in. I'm in business and finance, do a lot of trading and things like that. And it's all highly manipulated. But I do want to go back before we get too far in, because I want to validate two things that you said. First, on the having just the R behind your name. When we campaigned and we knocked over 10,000 doors, I can't tell you how many, and we pretty much knocked exclusively Republican doors, supposedly Republican. Okay. These people were rabid. There were a lot of just rabid liberals who had Republican behind their name. We go to the door, they would just literally attack myself or attack, my volunteers, would just.
Okay, but explain. You can get a list of people who vote Republican, and you weren't just going to every door in your neighborhood, right?
No.
I mean, you were going to Republican voters, essentially.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, so that's an important distinction for people who don't understand the way that works.
Yeah, and I had volunteers, because a lot of people, they're volunteering in that political. They're not the politician. They're not the person taking the arrows like I would be. So I just had, moms that would volunteer, dads that would volunteer to go knock, their neighborhood or some area that I'd say, hey, here's 25 doors, go knock on those. They would call me, they're not there for the confrontation. They're just there trying to say, hey, here's this guy, here's his information. We believe in him, check him out. And they would go to the door. They would call me and say, hey, are you sure this is Republican households? I've hit 2 or 3 people now that are just like, complete liberals. And I'm like, yes, that's the county data that we downloaded and sorted and filtered for, our purposes. And it, I don't know. Yes. So I can tell you firsthand that there's, I don't know, I guess maybe wolf in sheep's clothing in a lot of these situations, but there's a lot of people that are registered Republicans here in conservative Edmond that are not Republicans. They don't believe in the core values. You know, they've got an R behind their name so they can vote in a certain way is all I feel about that. And then second, when you were talking about how these legislators get into, you know, groups and you know, then they just kind of change. Well, that's just basically, in my opinion, that's just the herd mentality. That's that community view. That's why they want to have community everything, because a large group of people are so easy to control. I mean, they don't want rogue leaders, rogue people asking questions. They want to get everyone together. So then now you've got groupthink. I mean, basically, I mean, it's a psychological deal. And you and I have kind of talked about a little bit before, like with the Calhoun experiments, which I sent that, and we should have Dr. Robert Mather on. He's a conservative social psychologist. He was an ex-professor at UCO, and they got so woke over there that he just could not take it. He's a friend of mine. He supported my campaign. He's got a podcast, and I mean, he's just a fantastic guy. But I like to bounce a lot of my kind of psychological or mental type of questions that I have off of him, and he's just spot on. And I think he even wrote a book that Jordan Peterson referenced at one point in time.
That's very cool.
So I mean, he's an excellent guy. So
we'll get him on, Michael. You call him and get him on.
Yeah, we need to get him on.
We've got June open.
And that's just another thing that I just see constantly is, it's like in these schools, they don't really want to teach civics or rights, you know, government the way that it should. I mean, our rights should be just hammered from the time these kids go to school, as to how the founders really created this republic for us, not a democracy, not a majority rule, which is what we have. And but that group think mentality is really just a control mechanism.
Well, it is. And that was what I was going to say, even, you know, moving forward in my comments, is that at this point you have the House leader and you have the Senate leader, you have the Senate pro tem, who basically push the legislators to vote for certain things. And then if they don't, you know, then that vote is held over them. Well, this is my bill and you need to vote for my bill. And if you don't vote for my bill, then I'm not going to hear your bill in my committee, or I'm not going to have you, you can't run. I don't allow your bill to go to the floor, or, you know, pick one. And it's a control mechanism. Yeah. So you do it my way, not the way your constituents want, not the way that, you know, your conscience dictates. And don't forget, we elect people, hopefully, because, you know, we like who they are. We feel like their conscience of purpose is, you know, in line with ours. And so that they would kind of innately do what we would do if we were sitting in that chair. So, you know, if you're violating, if you're the Senate pro tem, or, you know, the House, you know, the head of the House, and you want to force a legislator to do something to provide a vote that their constituency or their consciousness would not allow them to vote for, then that's a problem. But it's a worse problem if the legislator caves and says, okay. And so what I was talking about with this other legislator was, you know, I said, made my points, you know, which I've made frequently. So many people, you know, yeah, we've heard them before. But still in all, if schools are doing a crappy job, why do we keep funding them?
Yeah.
I mean, and I just cannot figure this out. And as we talked to Kendra Wesson, you know, the school board had created some rules which had, you know, basically said, look, if you're not going to follow the rules that we put down, then we'll, you know, yank your accreditation or do something with your accreditation. Why Gittner Drummond, the Attorney General, came in and, you know, put the kibosh on that, I don't know. And we're going to have to really work on that and figure out what's going on there. But that's what the State Board of Education does, is promulgate rules. And, you know, the legislature had But the problem is, I guess, if the legislature isn't going to address the problem, then they won't let the state school board do it on their own, which is outrageous. There has to be some kind of checks and balances somewhere, because how long can you go trying to fight dirty school books and the legislature not do anything about them? But basically I said, well, we didn't agree with anything in that education package, because again, you can't just give out teacher raises, apropos to nothing. You can't just fund failing schools. You can't just give other people's money to send their kid to private school. So you're using tax dollars to pay for private school. And that's where we're going to jump off into the Satan Club here in just a minute. But you can't do that. And so this legislator, said to me, well, it was a no-win vote. I had to, vote if I wanted to get teachers raises. It was a no-win vote. And I said, no. Respectfully, that's not true at all. I mean, respectfully, if one part of the bill is wrong, then the bill is wrong. You can't just say one part of this bill is wrong, but this part is right, so I'm going to vote for it because this part is wrong, because two wrongs don't make a right. And you can't have a wrong section of a bill on a right, then go back to the drawing board and make it all right. But this ridiculousness, and people flail about this at the federal level and get so agitated and angry about that. You can't pass healthcare for all, you can't do this, but they don't recognize that it's happening under their nose in their state legislature. So then the comeback to what I said which was, wrong is wrong. You can't decide that you're going to vote for a bill that's wrong in any way, shape, or form. And, the comment was made, well, you don't sit in my seat. Okay, well, here's the problem with that. I actually, even though it's a little tiny town, I was mayor of my little teeny tiny town. And I'm sure legislators all, are going to look down their nose. Well, you only have, 2,800 people in your town. What does it matter if you're a mayor? Well, here's the thing. I had to make some really hard decisions when I was mayor. Had to make some really hard ones, because when I came in, the town only had about $35,000 for an operating budget.
Yeah.
I mean, that was it, a whole town, $35,000. So we had to make some really difficult decisions. And in a little teeny tiny town, you make difficult decisions that people don't like. You have a whole half of a town mad at you, and you lose friends over it. And I lost friends in this town. I had, people turn against me. So for her to say I haven't sat in her seat is just simply not true. I mean, not on the scale, but that doesn't mean I haven't had the same issues crop up. So, I'm kind of to the point where I'm getting exhausted of this, no, I didn't do the right thing, but I've got 17 reasons why. We're either going to do the right thing or we're not. And for people who, especially legislators who will say, well, I did this because this was the right thing, but then turn around and do something wrong and then try to make it right, that doesn't fly. I mean, and without people, calling them to task on this, nothing's going to get better.
Well, to me, it all comes down to one thing, whether you take it with your health, with your finance, with your education, with your job, with, just everything, comes down to personal responsibility.
Amen.
People, and I'll just go to one of the biggest, to one of my biggest pet peeves out there is this whole idea that everyone's entitled to healthcare, all this healthcare free, this, that. Well, if to me, the entire healthcare aspect is I'm responsible for my health, not my doctor, not my city, not my country. If I make the decisions to go eat 10 bags of Doritos and McDonald's for every single meal, I should pay the consequence.
Wait, you're not supposed to do that?
Yeah. I should pay that. My health is going to suffer the consequence of my decisions. If I don't work out, it's just like anything. I try to tell my kids constantly, about the whole food paradigm of, all the chemicals in the food and everything. But when it comes down to it, I'm responsible for my health. That's why, we make the health choices that we do. And, I have to work to be healthy. I have to work out. I have to eat right. I have to do all the things. I have to take supplements. I have to educate myself as to what's good for me, what's bad for me. People just don't want to take personal responsibility to have to do all that. They just want to take a pill or expect someone else to have to pay. And whether it's in education or business or your personal finances or even the food subject, that's what it all comes down to. People are lazy. And if we just allow them to just go along, that's what's going to happen.
And that's absolutely correct. And, they say a lot that education is a right. They've made education an entitlement. And education is not a right. I mean, you do not have a right to be educated. I mean, I'm sorry. And you can argue, well, we don't have then we won't have a country that understands, its backgrounds or its roots. Well, you guys educated that right out of us while saying out of the same side of your mouth, education is an entitlement. Well, of course, to you, it would be an entitlement because you want to indoctrinate people into a particular type of mindset that is not the one that we began this country with. So of course you're going to tell me it's an entitlement, but it's not. You're not entitled to an education. Sorry, you're not.
What's funny is I told Lauren the other day, I said, we need to make a meme. I said, I need to send this to Jenni. We need to make a meme. Let's rewind back to 1776. 1776 was a couple things. It was, or we'll go, we've already won. Let's just go a little bit forward. Okay. So let's just go early 1800s. What's early 1800s? It's guns and it's homeschool.
Literally. That's correct.
I mean, that's what it is. That's what America is. It's guns and homeschool.
That's right. Correct.
There's no organized entitlement system. There's no subsidies for every single thing you do. Yeah. And when we look at that, especially in education, I mean, we can zoom all the way down to Oklahoma. If education is so great, then why are we literally the last across the board in everything? Even the United States in general. When you look
the
at
United States is falling.
We should have been. We should be the pinnacle of education, of production. We have no manufacturing anymore. We don't produce anything. All we are 100% consummate consumers. We have been turned into a debtor nation that is full of consumers, where everyone just expects, give me everything. There's no real ambition. There's no drive. We've been completely disempowered because of that group think. Because we're America, we're so great. All this stuff. It just drives me up the absolute wall when I'm trying to teach my kids and say, we should be the best. We have every possible resource available to us, yet we are terrible and we've got bad health. We've got bad education. We got bad money and finances. I mean, it's just like we're the opposite of what we should be.
So I was looking while you were talking because our next, our jump off point was going to be onto Satan clubs.
Yeah. Good old Satan club.
Why am I laughing? We should not be laughing about this, Michael. It's not even sort of funny. I mean, we don't make a big deal about it, but everybody in our organization are Christian and we don't preach it, but we try to make sure that what we're saying is, elevating people and not dragging them down. So I actually did a Google search for Satan Club because I wanted to find out, because I couldn't remember exactly which state it was that, was putting the Satan clubs into public schools. And the first thing that popped up was Satan Club song. So there's a Satan Club song. After School Satan Club song and lyrics. Oh my goodness. You can actually listen to this. Can you hear it?
Yeah, it's going off and on. I can't hear it.
You can't? Okay, well, you know, I can't read the particular lyrics, which is I I think unfortunate. I'm not really sure. Okay, so I'm looking here and it says Satan Club can hold meetings in Saucon Valley School, federal judge rules. This was May 1st, 2023. I'm not sure where Saucon, North Carolina. The controversial club drew the ire of the community, and a North Carolina man allegedly threatened gun violence if the club were allowed to meet. So none of these reasons trump the after-school Satan Club's right to free speech and its First Amendment protections under the federal Constitution, the judge ruled. So I don't know how many people remember, but I have complained about this whole notion of giving taxpayer dollars to private school for numerous reasons. But one of the reasons is because the ACLU in Oklahoma and nationally will step in and say, if you're going to give this money to this private Christian school, you're going to give it to the new Satan school that's just cropped up. And what do people say to me, Michael? You're crazy. We're not going to have a Satan school in Oklahoma, blah, blah, blah. You think North Carolina is the epitome of the West Coast? North Carolina.
Yeah.
Has a Satan school or has a Satan club in school.
I'm trying to send something to my screen so I can screen share it here.
Oh, are you? Oh, there's another one. After school Satan club meeting held in Wilmington. Wilmington's West Virginia, isn't it? Yeah. So now they've got it. Satanic Temple planning to host Satan Club on back to school night. My pal Satan, which includes lyrics declaring Satan's not an evil guy. He wants you to learn and question why. He wants you to have fun and be yourself. And by the way, there is no hell.
Yeah. Well, when I bring this webpage up, they've got a little tutorial. I say tutorial. They've got a little video for the after school Satan Club. And what I love, and Dr. Mather can touch on this also because he's done some pretty decent research in this when we have them on. But what I love is, they try to proclaim that when you read their website, and I'll bring it up here on their website. Let me see. Well, I'm waiting for it to come up still. What I love is, it's all about logic and reasoning and being rational and science. It's got science all over the place. How did trust the science? How'd that do for us here the last 2 years?
Well, for a lot of people, it was great.
Yeah. Yeah.
My mom's doctor, before she passed away, had a big thing on his door that basically said, trust the science. And if you don't want to trust the science, you're an idiot.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. So there are a lot of people who actually believe that. Unfortunately, with a pretty heavy background in science.
Yeah.
I don't believe any of that at all.
Yeah.
We don't have science anymore.
Yeah. Here's from their website. So they've got, educating with Satan. And then they start out with the after school Satan Club does not believe in introducing religion into public school. Will only open a club if there's another religious group operating on the campus. And it says ASSC, which is the after school Satan Club, little acronym there, exists to provide a safe and inclusive alternative to religious clubs that use threats of eternal damnation to convert school children to their belief systems.
So it's okay to convert kids to your other belief systems so long as you don't stick it to each other.
Yeah. Unlike our counterparts who publicly measure their success in young children's professions of faith, the After School Satan Club focuses on science, critical thinking, creative arts, and good works for the community. While engaging in all these activities, we want club goers to have a good time. Now, when's the last time you've seen a Satan club do some good works for the community?
Well, not here, but the argument's going to be that we're a red state, which we're not. We're not a red state. But the argument's going to be we're a red state in the middle of the Bible Belt, and so Satan clubs haven't had a chance to get a foothold here. So, right.
I'm going to show you. Here's can you see that?
Hold on a second.
You may have to allow.
If I add it to string, there it is.
You may have to allow my screen share.
Yeah, I did. Can you see it?
Well, when I screen share from one monitor, I can't see what's on the screen.
Oh, okay. Dang it. Well, I can see it. Yeah, we can see it.
Okay. I follow, believe it or not, I follow a lot of these guys on YouTube, and this guy's name is Aaron Ra, Aronra. He's one of the biggest professors of the Satan Club. He's a satanic.
Well, he looks a little like Satan.
Well, that's what
if he had horns.
Why is it all of these? And I didn't pick this picture here on purpose or anything. This is a picture on one of his latest videos, and I just screenshotted it because I wanted to show it. But why are all these people? They have this possessed look to them. He
doesn't look like he slept in maybe, I don't know, what, 20 years? Maybe 20?
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's highly intelligent. He's very articulate. He goes to, city council meetings, state meetings where they're trying to pass some type of legislation. He's very articulate. He's always using the Constitution and the founders, and all this stuff, any way that he can. And then let me get. Are we still on my screen?
No, we can be. Just put it up and it'll come up. I don't know why it's not working for you. That's so weird.
Maybe let me stop and go back and do another one.
Okay. But yeah, I just can't believe Satan's not an evil guy. He wants you to learn and question why. He wants you to have fun and be yourself So here, that's kind of an interesting thing. So
is my screen back up yet?
No, it's not.
Okay.
So that's kind of an interesting thing, that whole be yourself. So we're told that if you're transgender, or if you're not, if you're anything other than a male or a female, you were made that way, right? And so that's what this says. He wants to have fun and be yourself. So you were made that way, so you are going to be yourself. So how do we not? Okay, it's up. Oh, that's interesting. There you go.
Yeah. So here's their website here with their after school Satan, little program. They've got their little cartoon.
Oh, and Satan looks so cute, doesn't he?
Yeah, they got their little cartoon Satan guy here. You've got their after school Satan Club mission statement. Here's the video I was going to show you. This is probably similar, and I don't know if this is gonna.
It's showing.
Can you hear all that?
I can't hear it, but it's
anyway.
Satan's
it's like
not an evil guy.
We'll stop it here.
Wait. Finish it out. I want to see what the whole song is. Nancy's going to be really unhappy that they put goats in this.
And they've got, a real
boys
upbeat,
and girls.
Happy song that they're singing here, with all these words.
Oh, goodness gracious. Everyone is different. Say the snakes. Yeah. Oh my goodness. He'll always treat you equal. Whether you're black, white, or gay.
Yeah.
Satan's not a scary guy. Oh my gosh, I'm so traumatized by this video.
Yeah, watch this.
Oh,
They've got the
oh,
Baphomet here,
no.
who's being nice to these kids.
He's an imaginary friend
Yeah.
who winks at you. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to go take a shower. This is really freaking me out.
I wish the audio song would come through on this, but we'll have to figure that out in the future.
And they just keep saying
It's
it
pretty much
over
at the
and
end here.
over again. Oh my goodness gracious.
And then it just goes to black screen. Anyway, they've got an entire we can turn off my screen share here. Let's see.
Well, I don't know. I thought that was pretty interesting in a horrifying and degenerate way.
Yeah. I mean, and here's what gets me about that whole deal. You know, they act like they're, you know, I don't want to offend any Democrats and say Democrats or I don't even want to say Democrats, maybe liberals. You know, liberals to me, they're very smart because a long time ago they went in and they coined themselves as the intellectuals, as the cultured people. They have sophistication.
Right.
You know, they're so cultured and sophisticated. And that's kind of the same thing with this Satan Club. You know, they're just logical. They use reasoning. You know, but their entire position is constantly just to make fun of Christianity, to antagonize.
Right.
You know, that's what they do.
Right.
They're not necessarily bringing profound scientific, you know, discoveries and things for the greater good of the people in the world. I haven't seen a single satanic person ever win a Nobel Prize or anything like that. Have you?
Well, but then again, you know, stop and think about this a second. So how many years previously, and by years, I mean hundreds of years, if you were in any way joined with a satanic, you know, anything satanic, you didn't want to say that out loud because, you know, somebody would be upset about that. I mean, and you would lose friends, you know, you would lose status, you would lose. So think about how, I mean, there's probably, and I know that there were some people, even in the commission beginning this country who literally did worship Satan, were Satan worshipers. And it's that, I keep forgetting to put the screenshot of the picture up. But what was the book that you, about America? You told me to read it and I read it and it freaked me out so badly. The Killing of Uncle Sam.
Howard Brown. I think it's Pastor Rodney
That's correct.
Howard Brown.
Yes, The Killing of Uncle Sam.
Yeah.
And he talks specifically about how some of these well, the money guys, if you will, you know, worshipped Satan and had you know, little boyfriends.
Well,
that
let me rephrase what I said. Let me rephrase what I said. I have no doubt that these people are literally entrenched in every aspect of the control of our government in this, even probably this world. But what I meant to say is, I don't see the satanic community having productive results or scientific, you know, producing good for the world. That's what I should say. You know, they're logical, they're reasoning, they're scientific, they're so great, but they're only self-serving, basically, or controlling in some manner. I don't see, you know, large scientific discoveries for the greater good of the world coming from the satanic community.
Oh, no, and you're absolutely right. But let me ask you this. So what do you think if we're going to have, I mean, if the ACLU is going to make the argument that, you know, Satan clubs are free speech, and if we're going to give, you know, access to Christians, that we have to give access to other people. So what do you think is the possibility that now that our legislature has deemed it acceptable to take your money and my money and give it to somebody else's kid to go to private school. Okay, so these are tax dollars, they're government dollars. How quickly do you think it's going to happen before the Satanic Temple in Oklahoma decides they have their own school?
Well, I hate to give them any ideas.
Oh, they've
Jenny.
already had that idea. Pish.
Well, it's just a matter of time. I mean, honestly, it's just a matter of time. I mean, they're going to take advantage of the system if the system is available, and the system cannot be. You can't exclude them now. I mean, you can't say no. We're not going to do that, because now they have every right to produce an education as they, deem to be, as long as they fit within the standards of what Oklahoma, is going to require, which, those standards are probably pretty low in the first place.
Do you remember the game Telephone?
Yeah.
So for those of you who don't live in the world and don't know what telephone is, you sit in a circle of people, and one person, the beginning person, says one thing and then says it to the next person, who says that same thing to the next person, who says then it. So when you've ever played telephone, have you ever gotten the message right at the end?
Well, I didn't play it that much, but no, the message was never right.
No. And the bigger the group, the screwier the message at the end, right? I mean, the smaller the group, the better chance you had of actually getting the message back. But the bigger the group and the more ears and brains and mouths it filtered through, the less chance you were going to have of having the actual message. So I look at what's going on in America kind of the same way. So we started out with the same message, but then it's gotten, telephoned and telephoned and telephoned over the years, to the point where our legislature and people that we know and like in the legislature can argue with us that it's okay to give tax dollars to other people. So this is socialism, taking your money and giving it to somebody else. That's socialism. And that it's okay to do this and do that to a private school. That's how far we've come, that they're going to argue with us that it is the right thing to do. Holy cow, how do we fix this at this point? Well, I mean, if we literally have even the people that we know and trust in the legislature coming up with this brilliant idea, how are we going to fix any of this?
Yeah, I don't think there's a way to fix any of it. We've come into the place of
screw it, we're done.
Well, we've come into the place to where now people are literally just entertained, the majority of their conscious time awake, and that's all they care about is, they go to work, they do their job, but then after that, it's, how do I get entertained? What am I watching? What's on my phone? What's on TV? Where am I going to go eat? They're not really worried about the crumbling society in all aspects around us, or their rights. One of my favorite things I watch on YouTube is I love to watch all these guys that get pulled over, or they're confronting, some government employee, and they know their rights, and the police officer's wrong. And I'm not saying cops are bad I'm not going against police.
Sure.
But you get every now and then you get someone that thinks they know the law compared to someone that knows their rights.
Right.
The rights, the law, the government doesn't give us, our rights. The law doesn't give us our right. None of, and people just forget that. And I love
and
to
Satan
watch
doesn't give us our rights.
Yeah. Well, I recently watched this guy. This guy's a constitutional scholar, and I can't think of his name. He's fantastic. He just won a $5 million lawsuit against the city of Las Vegas.
No way.
Recently. He goes out on purpose, and he's just filming in public, or, he enters a city building and he's filming or whatever he's doing. And then all of a sudden a city official comes up. They're just completely accosting this guy.
You can't film in here.
Yeah. Or whatever. And he's like, I know my rights. And, so he says, I'll take you to court, and he does, and he wins. I love this guy.
Well, see, I want to know how he's winning though, because the biggest problem that we have right now, in my personal perspective anyway, I mean, it could be somebody else's, but mine is we don't have any justice. I just posted something on my Facebook page the other day about an Oklahoma man who has just now, don't forget this was in 2020, gosh, 2020 now. Oh my gosh, that's awful. January 6th was 2020.
Yeah.
And we're in 2023. This is horrible. Oh my gosh. Anyway, so it was an Oklahoma man, and he was just now finishing up his trial for being an interloper, whatever they call it.
Insurrectionist.
And oh, I'm sorry, insurrectionist. I was called that. That's right.
Yeah.
An insurrectionist in the federal capitol, which, by the way, is a public place that is paid for with our tax dollars. But anyway, notwithstanding, the judge that he had called him guilty on all charges, and he'll be, going to jail and getting fined. Well, who was the judge? The judge was appointed by Clinton. She has the three names,
Yeah.
Of course, yeah. So there's no way that there was any justice there. And, sorry, liberal justices, don't say, oh, well, that's not every liberal justice, or that's not every left leaning. It is. I mean, I just don't think that, anymore we have justice, because nobody knows what that is. We survive on case law. We don't actually know what the Constitution says about anything.
Yeah.
We don't measure anymore what's going on with the Constitution. We just go, well, some idiot judge in West Virginia somewhere said this, so I'm going to go stand on that. And that's what this means. But it's all, we're so far off.
Isn't it all on purpose? I mean, it's on purpose to disempower us as American citizens. I hate to say the word citizen even.
Yeah, I know.
But as Americans, as free sovereign individuals created by God, it's all there because government is the final answer. The more that we can't take responsibility and control our own lives, we give that over now to the government. That's just giving. Hey, we can't control. I can't control what I eat, so the government needs to give me free health care. That's at the base level.
Or tell me I can't drink pop.
Yeah, well, I have to get an attorney because I'm not smart enough to handle the law myself, or my rights are not taught to us, or our rights are not taught to us. I mean, outside of you and me, and kind of this last generation of people that had some type of sovereignty, like my kids, outside of me telling them that this is your rights, this is how, this is why you're, here, God made you, and this is what you've been given. They don't learn any of that in school, but it's all on purpose. It's all to disempower us, break up the family. The government is now the father. The government is the provider. The government, takes care of your health. The government gives you food. I mean, it's all 100%, for government power. And until people, I don't know, something just, it's all going to have to collapse, or, get complete 1984 totalitarian, type of just total lockdown before people just revolt. But until we get backed into a corner and we lose all of our entertainment, we lose, we finally just see that we're just little cogs in a machine, nothing's going to happen. There's going to be independent people like you and I and other people like us that are going to, be loud or try to say something or say, hey, you should do this. We're working up a very steep hill, but at some point, it's got to hit these masses, go back to that group mentality, that group think, it's just all about controlling us.
Well, and I think the saddest thing is, and what I've noticed a lot in the years, because I guess I've been, an activist, if you want to call it that, for probably 15 years. And I've noticed across the span of time, kind of initially, we got started before Obama was elected. And I noticed that, and we actually were part of the Tea Party you know, and
Yeah.
went to Washington, D.C. for the taxpayer march on Washington and all of that kind of thing. And there were millions of people there that day. It was just amazing. I don't know if it's because I think it's just the perfect storm of crap is what I think's happening. But I think part of it is, you know, those people stood up and nothing happened, and the train just kept screaming down the tracks. And they were like, well, if I can't, you know, do anything about it, then I quit. I think that's probably the biggest thing that maybe has happened. Um, but I think people get to a point where if they don't see any results from what they do, they just give up.
Yeah.
And, you know, I know so many people that, you know, I started out with that don't do anything anymore. They're not involved at any level anymore because they're just like, well, I tried it and, you know, it didn't work. And so now I'm done with that.
Yeah.
It, it's,
Well, that's how the machine wins. The machine wins through
yes,
attrition, whether it's at the
yes,
school board level or
yeah,
even just an issue with your school. You've got an issue with your school, like the library books. I mean, how hard is it to give informed consent to parents? I mean, really, how hard is that to just tell the parents, hey, yeah, this book has some graphic language. This book has some sexuality in it. You should check it out. How hard is that? All they're going to do is what they've always done. They're just going to wait us out. You know,
yeah.
at every level of government or every level of whatever, they just wait us out. And I hate that, but you know, that's what we've come down to. It's just easier to give in, go back to your life, just deal with it. I mean, that we've been dealing with everything for a long time,
Yeah.
you know, and I don't want to just put blame on the churches. This kind of goes all over the place, but I wish our churches, our congregations would be teaching our rights, our God-given rights
Yeah.
consistently and constantly, you know, in Sunday school class. Say, hey, here's our rights, you know, given to us by the Creator. You know, these are your rights. This is what you can do. You know, I think a lot of it could start, you know, at that local church level. But, you know, churches don't want to get into any of that kind of stuff. They don't want to be controversial. They don't want to, you know, there's just a handful that would do that.
Well, and that honestly, that's, I think, the saddest part. I have a group of, you know, I went to a Methodist church for a number of years, and, you know, we quit going because all you would get was you would get a scripture. And then after the scripture would be the pastor's take on the scripture.
Yeah.
And then pretty much you know, have some, you know, wrote things that you did or said, and then you were done for the day. Okay, well, that didn't help me grow spiritually. It didn't really help me understand scripture anymore. And it didn't tell me anything about what was going on in the real world. So, what was the point of me sitting there for an hour and 20 minutes? I mean, I just flat didn't get anything out of it other than the satisfaction of saying I went to church. So, I mean, your point is well taken. And, you know, don't, I, if you read the Bible, you know, you find out that really Satan's in charge of this
Yeah.
place. I mean, this
Yeah.
is Satan's place. It's not God's place, and our place in Satan's place is to be bringing people to Jesus. And, you know, whether we do that on this podcast and reach out or, you know, whatever is really not the issue. The issue is it's not being done in churches. I mean, it's so emotive anymore. I'm going to put on some praise and worship music and I'm going to sing about Jesus and I'm going to lift my hands to Jesus, but I don't really know how to take that into my real life. I just know that I feel something about it, but that's, you know, that's what I know. If parents aren't bringing up their children in the word of the Lord, then you know, we can't really count on churches to do that anymore.
Well, I would agree. You know, when I moved down here, I moved down here 23 years ago. And I was from little Guyman, Oklahoma, you know, 8,000 people. You know, we went to church. And when I moved down here and I went to church, I was like, what is going on? This is just like I'm at a concert or something.
Yeah.
You know, and it is nice. Yeah, it's nice to have, you know, that kind of entertaining vibe. But at some point I was like, I miss the old, you know, just the old traditional boring, just blah, church. And it's just so funny to see how everything has to be so entertaining and just, you got to hit everybody's senses. We're so desensitized to everything. And I just hate that.
Yeah, I do too. But again, that's where we're supposed to be. And I think one of the books, you and I were talking about this the other day, and one of the books that I highly recommend that everybody reads is Fahrenheit 451.
Yeah.
Fahrenheit 451 is it's a snapshot of what's happening in real life right now. And people were entertained to death by their government, basically. And they got to the point where all of the books were picked up and burned because they didn't want anybody having any knowledge. And neighbors were turning on neighbors and turning in their neighbors, to get rid of the book. Oh my gosh, my neighbor had a book, and then they'd come and kill the person, burn down the house, and the book, with it. We're there on a smaller scale right now.
Yeah. Well, I would even say, let's go into one of the other books by Huxley, A Brave New World. I mean, we're literally coming to the precipice of that book there.
Yeah, that's an absolute fact. I mean, people don't understand the marijuana issue. They're like, well, everybody should be able to do it. And it's good for you. Some people need that for okay, well, that's fine. Yeah. But the government is going to go along with this, and other people are going to go along with this, and it's going to be pushed. Don't forget, we got that on our ballot in the first place by people who are out of state. And a lot of dark money went into getting the medical marijuana bill off the ground here in Oklahoma. And the only reason why we didn't pass recreational marijuana, in my particular view, is because Oklahoma is still rural enough that people like me who live rurally know what a horror show these marijuana grows are. They're frightening. The people that surround them with guns, and they're usually Chinese or some, it's scary. But I think the only reason we didn't end up getting that particularly, what I was going to say was the reason why the powers that be wanted that in Oklahoma so badly is if all you want to do is get stoned, you don't care what's going on.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't care.
Yeah.
They can do anything they want to you, because at least you got your doobie, your doobage.
Well, have you ever seen George Lucas's THX 111? That
But I heard about that. What is that?
That is it's just a dystopian, futuristic type of show, but it comes down to the same thing again, where you have a population of workers, and they're working basically kind of in a real, it's very dystopian. I mean, and they're working like with robots and cyborgs and AI, but the humans are just the workers that have to do the work to, produce these certain things for society, but they're all drugged. They're constantly tested to, for their emotions and this, but they're constantly drugged. And you've got Robert Duvall, who was in that show, who kind of bucks the system, in the end, but they root him out, and then they take him out, ultimately.
What is it called again? THX
like 111 or something.
Okay.
It was a very early movie by George Lucas.
Interesting. I'm gonna look that up.
I think that show.
It's Friday night. It's movie night.
Yeah, there we go. But ultimately, Jenny, I think it comes down to one thing. We are 100. Most people, we're completely dependent on the government in some way. If you're not growing your own food in some manner, at least a couple tomato plants. But if you're not growing your own food, you're not self-reliant, self-sustainable. I grew up in the Panhandle with not much means, and that was just part of our lifestyle, was to be more independent. We didn't have, we had to drive 2 hours, to go to, like a big store, or we
Yeah.
had to drive to Amarillo, Texas, or, something like that. So we had to be self-reliant, and that's just always stayed with me. But ultimately, when everything is provided for us and we have all this time to just be entertained, now we're getting, what's been sown here.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's no way around it. Well, we're should probably end for today, but I will say, we need to have a day where we talk more about open records
Yeah.
requests, because that's something that I know that at least parents who want to can manipulate the system. But I kind of do, and I always hate to use the word fear because I don't have a spirit of fear. But I do I am a little, have some trepidation over the fact that, I think if those parents who are really, really highly, motivated parents and interested in what their kids do, I think they've already gotten them out of public school, or they
Yeah.
didn't even put them in the first place. So I don't know, every year I think to myself, well, I don't even know why we do this anymore because nobody listens. I mean, it's 3 people listen, and if you say the really hard things, then nobody listens because they just simply don't want to hear the truth. I
Yeah.
mean, the fear of the truth today, I think, is this is the spirit of Satan. I mean, it really
Yeah.
is. I mean, when you are in a position where somebody is going to tell you the truth about something, but you're just going to go blah 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 blah, we're done. I mean, we're finished, because you can't grow without knowledge of the truth, and without knowledge of the truth, you can't correct any issues that you have. And if all of the people that are in the legislature, on school boards, or what, they just simply don't want to hear the truth. And then you have parents who aren't willing to hear the truth either, because if they heard the truth, they would have to act. And they don't know how to act. They're scared to act. They're not sure how they would go about it, whatever. I mean, that's kind of where we are. And it's just such a frustration. But as I've said before, I felt like at the beginning of the year, God gave me the scripture, my people perish for lack of knowledge. So I think all of us at this at rope have decided we're just going to keep giving the truth until there's no more internet, or the internet is even scarier than it is now. So,
Well, it's all coming, but ultimately, if people just would take a little more personal responsibility,
yeah.
And say, maybe I can do some of this stuff for myself, or maybe I should.
Or take the time to do it. I mean,
Yeah.
I know so many people who literally will spend a weekend on their couch watching golf, or watching, Le Mans, or watching basketball. And I'm like, how do you get away with that? I mean, I run a farm. I mean, I can't sit down on the weekends.
Well, the old Roman adage, give them bread and circus.
Bread and circuses. Yeah. That's exactly right.
For me, I quit watching sports a long time ago, because I mean, and I'm not against sports in any way. All my kids play sports and compete. I think there is something to, having that competitive, having to be in a competitive, some type of event, or, something like that. But as entertainment, it just completely wastes all my time.
Yeah.
So I stopped watching sports a long time ago, and it was compounded with the whole BLM,
Yes.
take a knee, disrespect the flag and the national anthem. That just put a little cherry.
That was
on
the
top
nail in the coffin.
Yeah, I'm like, yep, there you go. That's exactly what's happening there.
Yeah. And I'm going to say this too, you don't have to, your kids don't have to do sports in a public school. There are all kinds of places where you can have your kids do sports that aren't in a public school. So for those of you who don't want to homeschool your kids, or, think, oh, if I, get my kid out of school, he's not going to be able to play football or whatever.
Yeah.
That's just not true anymore. I mean, there are plenty of sports teams out there that are not traveling teams, not associated with the public school. So, you know, but it takes a little effort.
Yes.
So,
yeah, it does.
Well, Michael, it's always good to talk to you. And sadly, you and I could probably fix the whole world if everybody would just get out of our way.
Well, you know, that's another thing I think about all the time. You know, here we are in Oklahoma, but you know, we're so small here, you know, compared to the rest of the country and these other big cities. But I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep going because, you know, if we can make some change here and do something positive, you know, at least for something for a certain amount of time, you know, it's worth it.
Oh, and any eyes that we can open are eyes that are going to only help us in the future, or people, you know, that are only going to help us in the future. So, and we will have helped other people. So no, we can't stop. You know, but it just some days it's a little more discouraging than others.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
All right. Well, Michael, have a great weekend. It's always good to see you, and we'll see you again. Are you going to be with us on the 24th? I don't know. Who do we have on the 24th? I'm missing. Oh, no, Elena's on the 26th. We have our V1 SUT blogger is going to be with us on the 24th, talking about transgenderism and Bartlesville and what's been going on with the drag queens in Bartlesville. So they will be with us on Wednesday. So hopefully everybody will tune in for that. And again, thanks a lot, Michael. Always appreciate you. Thanks for being a member of ROPE, and have a great weekend.
Yes, ma'am. You too.
Right.